Hey guys, Jay Norris, Director of Safety. Happy Safety Monday. Thanks for clicking in. I've got Eli Jones, our safety, and in our safety division, he is our data and policy supervisor. We're going to talk with you guys about some work zone things today. And before we get started, I want to take a bigger look at kind of what's going on in our transportation system in the last few months. So Eli, COVID's happened and it's affected a lot of people in a lot of ways.
Right.
And so one of the ways it affected our system is right last March when everybody went home, the amount of traffic on our roadway went down. And so we saw drastic changes in the amount of volume on our roads. And then after about 6 weeks, people kind of figured out, hey, these roads are empty. I can drive like crazy out here. And so speeds went way up. And so we saw the energy on our system go up. So y'all keep that in mind for a second. And so another thing that happened is human behavior started changing. So opioid fatalities went up, drug and alcohol use went through the roof. You look at the Memphis area, we've had tons of shootings on the interstate this last year. There's a lot of aggression out there. You look at when people are flying, their flight attendants are reporting more and more cases of violence on the airplanes. I live in Williamson County, and we had a school board meeting a couple months ago that turned into a Jerry Springer show.
We heard about that.
Yeah, and I wasn't there, by the way. And so I think there's something going on with human behaviors, aggression, and there's some studies out there where people are feeling more distracted, more depressed. There's just some things going on out there that we just have to acknowledge. I know we're an engineering organization, but I think it's fair that we acknowledge those things. And so what's happening is people are getting in their cars, driving faster, driving more aggressive, driving more distracted, not wearing their seatbelts. Right. And so as a result, fatalities have gone up. Correct. Our minor injury crashes have turned into major injury crashes. Our major injury crashes have turned into fatalities. There's just more energy out there. And so I want everybody to be aware of that works at TDOT. This is some of our business, and people need to understand how people are using our transportation system. I know our operations folks are very aware of these things. But the thing I want to frame for you guys is people are taking these bad behaviors through our work zones.
That's correct.
And I'm concerned about that. Work zones are places of transition. We have lane shifts, lane drops, thinner lanes, and we have a lot of workers present, a lot of things going on. And so they're really a weak spot in our system. And so that's why we put so much emphasis on them, is to keep our employees safe through these transition times. And so I think it's important that we really proactively manage our work zones. So that's why Eli's not here to listen to me today. He's actually here. We're going to talk about some things, and Eli's really become an expert in a lot of safety data, and this is one of the things I'm going to talk through with him. So Eli, let's talk about work zones for a second. Okay. So how are we doing statewide in our work zones?
Well, Jay, thanks for having me for one. And to answer your question simply, not great.
Okay.
Now, as far as fatalities go, they've actually been consistent through the first part of the year, but like you mentioned, we're seeing serious injury crashes and then major property damage crashes. Those have both increased. Okay. So we're not trending in the right direction.
Okay, that's concerning. So we have several different kind of work zones out there. It could be, a widening job or resurfacing job where we have temporary traffic control or a rolling roadblock or a flagging. What kind of work zone has given us our most trouble?
Well, the type of projects that we see is how I group them. So for the most part, our riskier ones are going to be our reconstruction and our widenings. And those are typically our more complex and our larger. They have many more moving pieces within those type work zones. And then followed by that, it would be our resurfacing projects. And that's just simply because of the sheer volume of resurfacing we do. We do a lot of resurfacing throughout the year.
We sure do. So is there anything we can do to help with these high-risk work zones? Any advice you'd have for us?
Yeah, so as a department, we can continue to be innovative. We can continue to inspect every aspect of our work planning. And because that's our responsibility to do that. But then there's a responsibility on the motoring public as well. When you get behind a wheel, you have to understand that as a citizen behind that wheel, you have a responsibility to operate that vehicle as safely as possible and obey all the traffic rules. So what we really need is just some more buy-in from everyone, especially distracted drivers.
Yep. Totally agree. So we've implemented a new work zone crash review process. We're working with our regions on this on our active construction projects. Can you share a little information about that for us?
Yeah, sure. So each quarter our office produces a work zone crash report, and that details the specific projects that we have going on and how crashes occurred, when they occurred, the time of day, weather. There's a lot of data that we pull for that. And so now we're actually involving teams from the regions for a further in-depth review. And what they're trying to do is to determine if there's any trends or commonalities that we can find. And they're even riding through the projects now to see if there's anything confusing that we can develop. And so what we hope to come out of this are if we find changes that need to occur and the project is ongoing, then we can go ahead and implement those changes. If, you know, in some cases, the project, by the time the report comes out, that project is over with. So what we find there that can influence future design on future projects.
Yeah. So I think everybody, I want y'all to remember is that the goal here, there's two things I want us to keep in mind, is that the MUTCD is a minimum. And due to behaviors out there, we may need to start thinking beyond that. And the second thing is, y'all, we want to be proactive instead of reactive when it comes to our work zones. So we want to actively manage these to make sure we're doing a good job. So y'all, in traffic safety, you'll hear folks talk about the 3 E's. And there's engineering, education, and enforcement. And so enforcement makes sense. That's our law enforcement friends. The education piece is the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. There'll be those commercials you'll hear on the radio and TV. And the engineering E is exactly what it sounds like. That is TDOT's design and implementation and management of our work zones. And so we've got to be good at the 3 E's. TDOT is the sole owner of the engineering. So we really want to be good with that. And so y'all, that means that if you're a construction inspector, you're looking at the condition of traffic control equipment, you're checking it to the plans to make sure it's going well. If something is continuing to be a problem, you're raising your hand and talking with your regional safety manager, your construction supervisor. If you're in maintenance, we're setting up and tearing down our work zones to be best in class. We want to be the best in the nation at that, and you guys are doing a great job. We want to use our new work zone field manual. We want to make sure that things are tight and we're doing a good job. If you're in design or if you're in traffic, we want to make sure that things are designed properly. So everybody has a role to play when we do this. That's the thing I want to make sure that everybody hears it. So that's it. Eli, thanks for being with us today and talking through this. Y'all, just remember, traffic is a real challenge for us out there, whether you work in an office or on the side of the road. We need to be paying attention to these things. And finally, y'all, we want you to be safe for the 4 most important people in your life. Have a great week.